Welcome to the What Now podcast. I'm Darryl Elliott here with our family, Myneca Ojo, Regi McClurkin, and Archbishop Darel Chase. And we are going to discuss all the things that matter, the things that
Yeah,
we're going through, the things that we need to be prepared for. And hopefully we will find some answers and we will always be ready for what's coming next. Hey family, how you doing today?
hey
Great. How
Daryl,
are you?
Hello, Daryl.
good to see
Great.
everyone. Hey.
Great, great. Go Orioles. I had to wear my cap. It's
All
opening
right,
week this week.
All right.
they did it in that season opener. They did it.
Yeah, so got to represent the hometown.
All right,
Uh, always fighting with my friends up here in Steeler country. So
absolutely.
yeah, so hopefully we'll have a great season. But it's a lot going on in society. We were just talking before coming on today. I had a pre-planned show, but it's so much going on. We said we're just going to talk. We're just going to cover some stuff, and it's been a very eventful week.
Woo.
So we are. I'm going to kick us off just to discuss. I know we had an episode on DEI. I think it's going to be a returning thing because it's going to be recurring actions that's going
Absolutely.
to take place. So we have to discuss. We have to make light of the things that are taking place that's trying to alter history, erase history,
Mhm.
further marginalize people to try to gain a disadvantage or an advantage over people. So, what I want to bring up right now was something that we were talking about before we came on, is that the Naval Academy. This was just announced today. The not well within the past couple of days. The Naval Academy has now stricken 400 books they deemed as improper in the name of DEI. But I don't want to just say DEI today. I started thinking about this as a strategy, and
Mhm.
what I thought about it as is it's a strategy. On one hand, they can deport the ones they can deport because of the loopholes that exist to deport them, and the
Yeah.
ones they can't deport, they're just trying to erase. How do you
You're
guys
right.
feel about that thought? What do you guys think of
Well,
Uh,
that?
you know,
Go ahead,
we first
Archbishop.
have to remember. We first have to remember that in the process of establishing this nation, we as a collective people were not thought of as human beings.
As human beings, that's
We,
right.
we were 3/5. We were less than human, and so and despite everything that we've been through and we thought and that was it was very brief because that this past 50 years is not even a blink of an eye.
Mhm.
We thought we were getting ahead. The reality is we're not getting ahead. We're not. These things are not going to change unless and until we change them. We cannot go to their table to change anything because their table is their rules, their
Yes,
regulations, their guidelines. Till we establish our own table and stop infighting amongst ourselves,
yes.
we're going to continue to lose these battles.
Hmm.
And Madam Mayor, you want to say
okay.
something?
Yeah, there are a couple of things that you say, and it's so true, Archbishop Chase, that we cannot come to the table. Number one, their table's much smaller. Okay, so so there may not be room at the table for us. We have to learn to build our own tables.
Hmm.
But we're also African American, and the American part means that we have intaked a lot of the cultural aspects of the Europeans, especially those that are more individualistic. So, so it's going to be a mindset shift for us, because we have been taught for 400 years to not trust each other. Yeah. So, and that's how we have been able to be controlled in an environment. We've also been taught to value the exact same things that mainstream society values: the nice home, the BMWs, the nice restaurants, and so on and so forth, and then value what we own and operate less. And we hold standards based on, this model here. So, there's some things that we have to shift inside of ourselves. I think the church, um, in our homes, continuing to value us as African Americans, um, is important to really offer and take and hold into the struggle that we have encountered to be who we are today. It's important for us to really embrace the fact that we were enslaved against our will, and we were able to get to this point where we are almost at parity with them. Because, see, they'll never, mainstream society will never let you get to where they are, because they'll just move the goalposts.
Absolutely.
Yes. So it's not a us versus them type thing. It's that the table in mainstream America is much smaller. So it's time for us to start building our own table and putting our own chairs there and putting ourselves someplace else. We've got to change our mindset, if that makes sense.
It
Reggie?
absolutely, and not only that, but see, my biggest, peeve is the fact that even after 400 years, we still, many of us who look like us, still needs the validation from those who oppress us. And that's been my biggest challenge for many years now, of trying to enlighten, inspire, and motivate people who look like you and I to stop seeking the approval, the validation, and acceptance of people who their whole life has been built around oppressing us. I mean, alluding to Darryl, what you were saying about the books, the 400 books. I mean, it blows my mind. Here you have a Naval Academy that, and look back over the history of the Navy, so many great things happened in the Navy because of a black man. The creating, the diving suit, that was a black man. Creating some of the missile, weaponry, that was done by a black man. And yet still we need somebody else, to approve us. And I'm, alluding to what Archbishop said, I'm just at that point now, I'm the hell with all of it. I refuse to allow myself to even with, associations with people who don't look like us. I just refuse to not call it what it is. I mean, I've lost quite a few friends just since November by letting people know and calling them out. Because like I said, you work next to some of the people who work in corporate America and, blue collar workers and everything else have worked for 20, 30 years with people who they professed and called themselves, well, that's my good friend, my co-worker and stuff like that. But like I said, yet still every time they went home, they called you and considered you to be just that little black person we know and tolerate on the job. And it's not no thing of being no real friend, because they will never be your friend. They have been taught, like I said, remember the pictures, everyone has seen it. Back there, the whole thing, let me get my camera right. The whole thing with the picnic thing. There were little children standing out there watching us being lynched. And so, like I said, I've just been too militant for too many years to even consider at this point. I tell people I don't need no new friends, and the friends I do have, I damn sure would not allow somebody who not to look like me. You're just somebody I think I know, because I don't put it past you to do anything, because no matter what does happen, alluding to what you said, Darryl, with the guns and things like that. I'm so sick of seeing our kids out here. Like I said, you're buying them all these things they don't need, but yet our white counterparts, every weekend they up in the woods shooting, they practicing and preparing, 10, 11, 12 years old. they're getting their new rifles when they're 11 and 12 years old and things like that. And so, yeah, it's just so much we need to just correct within ourselves. But I am beyond even trying to correct it as a whole. And I'm just trying one by one to reach people, to let them see, look, it's more time. It's time to do this. In our church and stuff like that, we are advocating gun ownership. We are telling people you better get you a gun and go to the gun range. We are letting people know that, like I said, that's the only thing that's going to protect us. You can't rely on calling 911. Because like I said, look how many of us have been killed by calling 911 to get us protected from somebody who's breaking in our house, and they'll come and kill us. And the person who was breaking in the house, who don't look like us, they're telling them to go ahead down the street. So, this is just something that I'm very passionate about. And just like I said, I am just, I've reached the level of here. So I'm not taking no prisoners now. You all might, on any given day, you might say, well, we're sorry that Reggie's not on the podcast. He got locked up, because I'm just not taking no crap no more.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead,
Let me just answer that real quick, because we get to a point where we just get frustrated and we get angry, and we should be taking that energy that we have right now, just like Reggie had talked about, and really cultivating that energy into a strategy as to how we move forward with this. And if it means going to the gun range and getting protection, I'm not a big fan of guns, and I understand that. But the truth of the matter is, we're only 12% of the population.
Right.
So a lot of the things that we have to do in our society has to be more well thought out. Yeah. I mean, we can do the one-on-one thing, if we're approached and so on and so forth. But collectively, I think we have to think a little bit harder and utilize the resources that we have more so to really fight this. But really, it has to be internal as well. It has to be the self-love aspect of it. It's the self-worth. What are we doing to uplift ourselves, instill pride in ourselves, instill pride in our children, get them out of situations where they're not consistently being enslaved by a system, by, working for a few dollars, for someone and then paying high rent someplace. Why aren't we owning anything? What do you do? Bringing our kids back into the home and making them save their money so that they can buy a home. So, they're not paying $3,000 for a two-bedroom apartment. I mean, we just have to think, more strategically. I'm trying to pull a family in. I'm trying to get them to think, but you can't get them out of the mindset. I got to pay this rent. I like where I am in the big city. No, you need to be in the country right here, getting a trailer and taking this piece of property that our family owns already, putting something on it and start building something.
I was thinking not very long ago, and I brought this up in one of our other conversations about developing an ecosystem, but also we need to be better at the planning part, and it's the broad collective planning. And what we're going to have to think of is understanding, just like in any societal structure, we have to have layers to this. You have to have your administrative people, you have to have your militant people, you have to have those who are the caregivers, and everyone has an equal part, an equal role, and an equal importance that we have to become a bit more organized as a community, so we can identify what our roles are. If we can identify our roles, we're able to create not only an ecosystem, a sub-economy, but a fortified community. And when the community is much more organized and fortified, then it's much more difficult to bring terror to that community, because we have our ducks in a row. I do think, I'm the kind of person that's a bit optimistic in a certain way. I'm a realistic optimist, I'll put it that way. Knowing that generations do change, and their outlooks are many times very different. And I believe that the upcoming generation, um, though some may not see it, they have the elements to be able to help put a little more meat on the bones, because
Right.
this is a restructuring of that which we were trying to build in the 1960s.
Right.
When and you know what they did then? They just decided to kill off everybody who was at the forefront.
Right.
So if you were Kennedy, you had to go. If you were either Kennedy, you had to go.
Right.
If you were King, if you were Malcolm, you had to go. Whoever it was in the way, who posed a threat to organization,
Mhm.
were the targets. Any leadership that had the ability to organize and to command a people to pull in the same direction, that's where the targets lie. But thank goodness for technology, and I am a
Yeah.
technologist. We can be a bit more, we can be a bit harder to deal with, because
Right.
we can leverage the technology of the day, because you
Right.
can't get us all when we're spread out. and
Exactly.
um and you can create movements. I mean, countries are being altered through technology right now.
Right.
And that's what they're trying to do here, believe it or not. They're trying to alter this society through technology.
Mhm.
And I think if we understand our organizational chart better,
Mhm.
I think that we could have a better leg up. Um, I want to share a clip real quick. Okay, I'll do this early. Since we're on this conversation, this clip is a building in Salt Lake City. It was very famous, and all of a sudden, it's coming down. So I'm going to put this up, and I want to get the reaction on the other side.
Wow. Woo.
All right. So
Mhm.
this is a building that had it's not that long. It's not that long that this mural has been up. And the answer is, oh, we'll have a little, basically a token memorial in the new housing community that they're going to put up. And we are seeing right now a domino reaction in society right now. It's the permission is there. Is that a good way of saying it? The permission is there
Yeah.
now to blatantly erase Black history. And I've been in conversations with people who are saying they're trying to scrub a lot of Black history, and we need to preserve records. And and I'll probably be joining in some effort to be able to technologically archive enough all of our Black history. And the question is, what's a response? Because we are what now, right? We are what now. So, what is the response that we should think of? Because you're not going to stop them from doing what they're doing right now. You know, this is when I like to call it. This is when the elephants want to stomp in the forest right now. So they want to go through and stomp through the forest right now. They can do what they do, but we do know our history. We know that we are capable of surviving anything. So I want to start with that. We have proven that. So I'm going to ask you guys, what do you think in terms of our resolve? Where do we go from here? Because we are now dealing with a permission structure to erase Black America. Go ahead,
Well,
Bishop.
since it's open, I'll start this off, and we have to take the mindset of the Ashkenazi Jews who suffered a Holocaust that led to, World War II. But the biggest Holocaust was the one that our ancestors endured during the transatlantic slave trade, and this Holocaust is still continuing. So unless and until we get the mindset that we should, number one, should never forget.
Yes.
Okay? Here's something that the church teaches erroneously. Okay, is that everybody's supposed to be forgiven and restored and so on. No. I can forgive you, but I'm never going to forget.
Never going to forget.
Okay. A leopard does not change his spots, nor does a tiger change his stripes. It is what it is. A snake is a snake is a snake all day, every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And we have to get into the mindset of we have to become our own friend, not acquaintances, but friend. We have to learn how to stand up for each other and make sure that we never forget. We never forget the injustices that have been done to us. We never forget this blatant denial of our history. We never forget. And see, while they continue to do this, and while they continue to try to erase all of the accomplishments, all of the struggles, so on and so forth, and why can't we just be happy and you do what we tell you to do? Excuse my French, but damn it, we've been doing your bidding for the last 500 years.
Yes.
Who the heck are you when all you know is bloodshed and hatred?
Right.
To tell us we're trying to get along in peace, unity, and love.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to see warrior side. And when that happens, not if, but when that happens, there's going to be a reckoning.
It's going to be a reckoning, yes.
And I don't think they're ready for that reckoning.
Oh, no.
Because we can see even across the ocean where our counterparts are fed up.
Fed up, yes.
We here in the United States, I think we've taken the placebo for so long that we start believing the lies that they tell us.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not about DEI specifically, but you want to know something? Don't worry about DEI.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get our community straight.
Right.
Let's get our household in order. Madam Mayor just said that and I didn't know that. Last year, I thought we were 13 or 14%. Now we're only 12% of the nation's population. I can remember 20 years ago, we were 30%.
30%, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's because we bought into their ideology. A house, a car, 2.5 kids, and this, that, and the other thing, and the so-called American dream. And the reality is they have weakened us. And they've weakened our position. And so if we're going to strategize, we need to have some real conversations. And if they can't get on program quick enough, they're going to have to be eradicated.
Absolutely.
What do I mean by that? We shun them.
Mm-hmm.
We put them out. We excommunicate them because now we know who you are. We know that you're in the house and not in the field. Okay? We know who you are. We've got to start to uniting
Yes.
ourselves. We can put up all these murals and images and so on and so forth, but until it reaches the depth of our heart and soul,
Mm-hmm.
all it is a picture. The scripture tells us to write these words upon the tablets of our heart. These things should be ingrained in us so that
That's good stuff,
we
Bishop.
as a
That's good stuff.
people can survive. The whole Old Testament is focused on Israel. Number one, how it became a nation, and number two, how it continued to struggle for its own identity.
Mm-hmm.
And dagnabbit, we're still there.
It's still there.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
that's really good, Archbishop Chase, and I totally agree with you. And just so even on the lines of Israel, we have to realize also that we're also human beings as well. And I'm a political scientist, so I study politics and Karl Marx and the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, and have to realize too that once Israel got to a point where they were in the bourgeois class, they began to act like the same people that oppressed them, with the Palestinians. And I'm not going to get into a debate about, who's right or wrong, Israel, Palestinians. I just know that there's a lot of genocide going on in Palestine right now. And so I can't really support that because I'm a humanist first.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in humanity and everyone has a right to exist no matter what.
Everyone, yes.
Yes, not because,
Yes,
you
yes.
because you disagree with my ideology, you don't
Right.
need to exist. I get
Right.
concerned about this in this country as well, but I also want to take a step back too, because look at what's happening with the federal jobs that are being cut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is more an attack on not only the anti-DEI stuff. Look, none of that stuff, those monuments coming down. I mean, let's talk about Salt Lake. Let me just go to Salt Lake City, right? That video, because I think it's important to mention it. That was in Salt Lake City. Now, it may have a higher population of African Americans in Salt Lake City, but the whole entire state is like less than 1%.
Exactly.
African Americans. So they barely have one. As a matter of fact, they're listed on the top 10 states not for African Americans to, to move to. So a lot of those, actions are very performative. I'm in Pennsylvania, and I don't think Pennsylvania is a very welcoming state in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion outside of Pittsburgh and Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And I led efforts when I was the director of diversity with the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission when the George Floyd effort came across, and the world was going to a reckoning in terms of that. And my 93% white male population of employees that was working at Turnpike had to listen for a 2.5-hour conversation when we talked about George Floyd and African Americans in the workplace. And I will guarantee you about 90% of them did not walk away with the right message that they wanted to hear, and probably felt bad that they even had to be there, honestly. But I felt good because it was a great conversation. We had some great leaders, talking about the impact on people. But this is an issue right now where we have to move beyond the performative aspect of it, and to think that just because, even with the diversity, equity, and inclusion program, that it really makes a difference. when we're not uplifting each other,
Together, right.
yeah, in our own communities, and saying, look, we can move forward without any of this because we understand the struggle that our ancestors went through. We understand what they built. We're not going to take, and we have to understand legacy too. And we have to understand that if we're going to be in America, we have to understand it the way Europeans understand it. The notion of scarcity that we talked about a couple of weeks ago is a notion that the European culture focuses on. That's the reason why land ownership is important. But we are in America. So, can we take some of those aspects of that to cultivate and continue to build our own community independent of their resources?
Yeah,
Now, what?
Somewhat.
Go ahead, Reggie. You want to
no,
say something there?
yeah, I just wanted to inject this. Everything that Archbishop has said and Myneca have said, I totally agree. But the only thing that's lacking is that we really don't have no definitive leadership. And all of these things, we are intelligent enough to understand how we can go about and how we should go about bringing about the needed changes within our own communities to sustain us as a community. But unfortunately, the so-called self-appointed and self-indulged leaders, they're just grifting, just like the Orange Man, and I'm just so disappointed that what Archbishop was mentioning, and you too, Daryl. Unfortunately, we don't have the Meggers on no more. We don't have the Kings anymore. We don't have even the allies and, like I said, the Kennedys anymore. And what we have now, the only thing we do have going for us that's not proven to be very beneficial for us, the only thing left is the church. And unfortunately, the church is, like I said, not taking their rightful place because we've allowed people to become leaders who were just trying to build monuments to themselves. And that's why we had the situation, all the uproar going viral with um, Marvin Sapp with that situation. But that's what I see is lacking. I'm not, like I said, I'm beyond being angry. I'm beyond being upset. I'm just ready to, like I said, kumbaya. I ain't got time for it. I'm ready to fight even into the death. Like Martin Luther King said, if you don't have something that you believe in to the point that you're willing to lay your life down. I'm getting old now. I've lived a good life. I've had a lot to show for it. My family is secure, but I'm just tired. I'm tired of the let's get along. I'm tired of just listen to the okey doke and stuff like that. And by now, we should all collectively be able to see there will, even if it's another 100. Think about it. It was over 50, 60 years ago when Martin was doing his "I Have a Dream." Look, 50 years we've gone back. We've not gone forward because with the Orange Man in there, now they're tearing down all the things. And like I said, what's happening in Salt Lake City, like the honorable mayor said, Madam Mayor said, Salt Lake City, come on, it is. I'm surprised, first of all, they even let it go up, you know. And so them tearing it down is something that should have, would have, could have been, expected. I'm just feeling bad for the hours of labor of love that those artists put, to do that girl because it was really beautiful. And then I have to question, and what Daryl, do you have any more context to that in the sense of what brought about that? We know that it's a movement now to tear things down, but I also wonder where that 1% of people who look like us, why they weren't out there surrounding the building, like the scripture says, marching around the walls of Jericho, demanding that it stay up. I mean, because that little platitude of saying we just make some little honorable mention when we do the housing, and we know what housing has been for the last 50 years in America. Who wants to live in that substandard housing? So, like I said,
Mhm.
we just got to start fighting. We got to start standing. We got to just unite for the cause of just saying we're not, I'm mad as hell and we're not going to take it no more. That's the bottom line.
Well,
Trying to get along ain't getting us nowhere.
well, I think that where we are is we're at the place where they're trying to strike early and hot, because we're coming off of an election where a lot of people were immediately deflated. So while the people are still deflated, it's just like this. I was getting my grilling area all set up, doing my backyard, and then I noticed that I had a hornet's nest in the crack in one of the crevices of my shed, and looked like that they were building up pretty good in there. And but I'm an outdoors kind of guy, so I know I'm not gonna strike during the daytime.
Absolutely right.
So when the night comes, I know they sleep. They're pretty groggy, pretty slow at night. And I went out there with my flashlight in the crack and threw some little something in there. They didn't even move. Right. Didn't even move. Now, if it was daytime, they would be all over me. They would be all over me. But it was nighttime when they were not in the mood and they were not at their best. And I think that they see us like that hornet's nest. It's nighttime. We're kind of asleep, tired from trying to get Kamala over the hump. And I said to my wife today, I said, man, I miss Kamala. I just told her I miss her. Just the kind of spirit she was trying to come with, just the spirit by itself. I mean, I appreciate the spirit. But the point being is that while the people are still kind of, I think we're out of stunned in the what are we going to do phase or what's going to happen. They are trying to flood the zone, as the word is being used right now. They're trying to flood the zone while the hornet's nest is sleeping. Right. Because they know there's a hornet's nest. I don't think that you're dealing with a people who are ultimately apathetic. I think you're dealing with a people who are currently in shock. So it's going to take a while for that shock to wear off. But when it does, and this is the thing you got to look out for, it will wear off. Oh, yeah. I mean, we have to understand that this will not always last. Nothing does. So when this wears off, and if they have not tried to do anything to, bring things back to center or towards the center of things, not be so punitive and not be so cruel, that is going to come back in spades. Oh, yes. And you don't have to worry about my generation. I keep saying, look out for the ones behind me.
Yes, exactly.
And right now, currently and to the thing about Salt Lake City, one day we're going to talk about how in the world did the Mormon Church get access to all the slave records. That's going to be a whole nother conversation. Exactly. But when you're talking about what's happening in Salt Lake City, you're talking about everything is symbolic right now. This is also because the symbolism is meant to send the message to the people and to deject the people. It's in furtherance to bring greater discouragement and bring greater resolve to not do anything. That people will just go, oh well, they're doing it everywhere, and that's the effect they're hoping for. The problem is they don't know where the tipping point is, and because they have a history of not knowing how to stop, that's where there are going to be a lot of problems in society. The course will get corrected one way or the other, but we're going to have to understand, those of us who have a grasp on history, those of us who have a grasp on how things work, those of us who are pastors, archbishop, and people like that, us have to continue to keep encouraging the people in the meantime. But it will tip. It will tip, and it's going to be a triggering. Something is going to trigger that. Currently, you have Bernie and AOC on their tour, and they are getting a large amount of people. And here's what you have to look out for, and this is what people are afraid of. They are afraid that the races will get on the same page.
Exactly. Yeah.
They are afraid that they will realize that they've been fighting the wrong fight.
Mm-hmm.
And they will understand that they were all targets. And that was my point in the beginning. Who you couldn't deport, you're trying to erase. Who you can't erase, you're trying to keep delusional. See that? And that's the other part. Poor white people are being made to be delusional, to think they have a privilege that they do not have. And that's where this whole thing is happening.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. That's exactly what the strategy is. And it's always been the strategy in society. That's the reason why, the wealthy 1 to 10% of the population has always been able to maintain. And the reason why slavery was able to maintain for as long as it has been is because there was an illusion that people that did not have, like white people, that did not have the resources to own slaves, because let's face it, there's a big gap between the haves and the have-not. There's not even really a middle class, if you really want to talk about it. But those white people maintained the legality of slavery in our society because they were always taught that the whiteness, the color of their skin, elevated them, below any other person of color, and that they had more access to being able to get into the upper class to own slaves. That's the reason why slavery was able to maintain itself for 400 years. And only because of economics, when there was an economic downfall in the country and they began to see that the Industrial Revolution was occurring and America wanted to be competitive in that aspect, then they decided that the only way that they could be competitive is to have workers. And so therefore they needed to look at the only workers that could move from one area to another without going outside the country. And that was the enslaved. And then that's how, slavery became illegal in this country. But the mindsets of those, the federal employees getting laid off is a good place to start, because we know about 80% of the population are European Americans. It's only, it's very few that are persons of color, but they're getting laid off at a tremendous magnitude, or they're in state, that level of stability is no longer there for them. And so maybe that'll push them over, but also they're brought up to believe that their whiteness is the advantage in society as well. So I love seeing AOC and Bernie and all of them, getting the crowds that they need out there. It needs to transfer to votes, because what we are, and we also need to be voting on a paper ballot so that they can be counted.
That's it.
Yes, because there are some questions about if this election was even valid. So, so we need something to, to really verify, so we can actually go back to count ballots. But we did lose. There were 2 House seats that were up that still maintained that stayed red in Florida, where the 2 Republicans won. And so they're part of the MAGA, Make America Great Again agenda. So they'll be going into the House. There was 1 Wisconsin seat of Supreme Court, that was a success. And of course, in Pennsylvania, we're pleased to say, for the first time since I've lived here for 14 years, the governor, the Senate, and the House is all blue.
All right.
Yeah, so
Right.
that's the very first time that has happened, because we did get two, a Senate and a House of Representatives seat
See.
in a predominantly red area.
Okay.
Right.
So
And see the Florida race actually cut their margin deeply though. So
okay.
they, even though they won, we are getting some indicators that we could be in for a total massive beatdown
Mhm.
against red in the
Exactly.
midterms,
Right. Midterm.
because a district that went 30% up for Trump, the winner was only at 13%.
Yeah,
That
like
was
12, 14. Yeah,
yeah.
you're right.
So that's a big chunk there. So that's an indicator as to what people are feeling nationwide when the midterms come. Oh,
Oh,
that's why they're moving fast.
yeah.
They know that midterms is going to be pretty brutal, probably. But
Mhm.
you know how that goes. Get what we want, make it difficult to undo, and vote us out. Whatever, we'll have a soft landing anyway if we get out. So they have, I'm sure they have a strategy for even losing, um, if that's the possible case. But we can. The best thing is, I think, the Wisconsin Supreme Court was a good win for the sake
Mhm.
of holding the judiciary currently. Guys, I want to take a quick break and then we're going to come back on the other side, okay?
Okay.
Okay. All right.
In a world where convenience meets diversity, there's one marketplace that stands out from the rest. Welcome to Firecart, your ultimate destination for all things shopping. At Firecart, we believe in bringing you not just the everyday essentials, but also a curated selection of cultural and handmade products that celebrate diversity and craftsmanship from around the globe. Whether you're looking for the latest gadgets, trendy fashion pieces, or one-of-a-kind artisanal creations, Firecart has you covered. Our diverse range of products caters to every taste and preference. But that's not all. Introducing our exciting affiliate program, Firestarters, where you have the opportunity to earn money by being a Firecart seller or by referring customers through your affiliate link with generous commissions. Imagine making passive income simply by sharing products you love with your friends and followers. With Firecart, it's not just about shopping, it's about building your own success story. And here's the kicker: during our exclusive launch period, you can take advantage of discounted pricing and special perks available only to our founding members. So why wait? Join the Firecart revolution today and experience shopping like never before. Firecart, where every purchase ignites a world of opportunity. For more information, visit firecart.shop. Your journey to endless possibilities starts now.
Firecard is a subsidiary of Diadem Technologies, and we're actually excited. A lot is going on with Firecard here lately, as we have been making preparations for a greater launch period. So if you are a vendor or a potential buyer, check out firecard.shop, and you'll be able to take part of our economic revolution. All right, guys. Now I want to pivot real quick. I want to pivot.
Mhm.
Um, this also has been a week of never would have paid it. Our dear brother Marvin Sapp and was recorded, and it turned out it was actually a year ago this happened, and the video just surfaced of when he was at a convention, a conference. And when it was time to take the offering, he told the ushers to shut the doors, and he and It was very emphatic, and it was basically we not leaving until we get this $40,000. Okay, so that was the context and the connotation of it. We all have different lived experiences here, and we all occupy different seats. If you don't mind, I'll take the first hit if y'all don't mind. I want to take the first hit on this to give a perspective. First of all, let me shout out to my brother Marvin. We and let's be balanced. I'll try to bring balance to it. Let's establish we should not all do understand, but we should understand that church, like anything else in life, costs money. So we can start there. Church does cost money, and in days of expensive gas and electric, I have had to maintain a large facility and been a part of large ministry. So it can get expensive to keep the lights on, keep the doors open, and things like that, and such and so. Yes, that is true. And I wanted to start with that acknowledgement before I go into what I have to say. But we have to be careful of how we raise money. We have to be careful of how we take an offering. Archbishop, I will yield to you more on the scriptural side. I'm just going to say this as a general ministerial part, that when we are taking an offering, and when we need to meet a budget or the cost of doing the things we do, we have to exercise, as we like to say, wisdom and discretion in how we do it and what we say. And then in that, we have to have faith that God will provide. And we have to find a balance to understand, and that we have enough understanding between the pulpit and the pew of the expenses. If we're a family, we should be able to be prepared to uphold what we have to. And if something is too expensive, you have to do like anybody else. You might have to downsize just to meet the cost and the budget, and know that God can provide. I'm just going to leave mine there. I'm going to give you guys the rest of this. So perspective. I want to hear from the artist in the house first. Okay, I'm going to hear from the peer of Brother Sapp, which I know you know. So I'm going to step back and let you.
You know, I was hoping you wouldn't do that.
I'm sorry about that.
I know, Marvin, and I'm telling you, this entire situation has really disappointed me. First and foremost, I've, through my relationship and ongoing and all that, I've always been concerned, even, it's being Pastor Donnie, okay? So many artists have morphed and evolved into becoming ministers, pastors, bishops, but for the sake of clarity of understanding, Pastor Donnie was really a pastor before he was even an artist. His ministry has been in him. But with Marvin, this situation here, I feel, like I said, I'm totally opposed to it. I'm totally appalled by it. And I'm totally, not willing to hear any lame excuses as to why it happened the way it did. I even posted on my page, I'm not going to spend no time debating whether somebody said close, shut or lock the doors. The reality, it implied, that you didn't have the freedom to leave. And more than that, what bothers me about it more than anything else is the arrogance about, behind it. It's okay. We all know, their expenses. And that was my first, comment, because I've stopped going to so many conferences, because it's easy to say you want to be in a convention center, but Darryl, it's the cost to go into anybody's convention center is astronomical.
I'm talking about.
And the other problem I have with it is a twofold. First of all, you're trying to be too grand. Second of all, you're charging me to come in here. Everyone who was at that conference, and it was not even a year ago, it was back in July. So we're talking about roughly 9 months ago. Everybody had to pay over 150, I think it was 160, $175, something like that. I didn't get the definitive number, but everybody was saying it cost. But add in the fact that the people had to stay in hotels, which they jack all the prices up. So they were paying more than 150 per night for this PAR convention. It was the Pentecostal Assemblies Worldwide Convention Conference. And then they also had to pay for their transportation there and for their food. So everybody who attended was already out of no less than $750 to $1,000, depending on where they came from. So my thing is, alluding to what Darryl, I don't really care about your budget. If I paid to come, it's just like me going to a restaurant. If I have to pay $100 for my meal, I don't give a good doggone what your expenses are. I'm not going to let you. I've seen it happen even at some funerals. You're going to take up an offering because you don't feel that the family has enough to cover the funeral. I don't care about none of that. If I pay, I'm getting ready to go to a conference next week. Okay, you've charged $225 for me to come to this. I didn't have to pay because I'm going to do some performing and a clinician. But the reality is, it doesn't matter to me what your expenses are. You could have had it at a local church as opposed to having it at this big convention center. Alluding to that, just like on case in point, on Sunday, I went to Walter Thomas retirement concert. They had a new psalmist, and I applaud them. It was one of the greatest concerts I've ever been to in my entire life. And the thing that impressed me more than anything else, they chose to not even hire. I mean, they could have asked anybody to come and be a part of this. But what they did instead, they made sure that they did in-house. They used all of the combined choirs of new psalmists and then called in some of the people who were part of the ministries like I've been, years gone by and things like that. But they didn't get no big name artists and bring them in town. They used all the local people and called in some of the friends and musicians and singers because there's no excuse for this. But what I am more appalled about anything else with Marvin is the fact of how arrogant he has become. We all rallied behind him, when his dear wife, succumbed to cancer and all that type of thing. Yeah. But you're not going to get me in no church because I go prepared to I'm a giver. And when you start that stuff, the $100 I would have gave you, I'm not going to give you but $2 now. And I'm serious about that. I have done it. I had somebody stand in front of me telling me, well, we know this man can write a check for $10,000. I said, you're right. Well, because you said that, here's my $2 worth, and that's all you're going to get. Because I'm sick of that. Bishop, Archbishop, I want to hear your take on it. But that's where I am with this, Darryl. I don't feel no empathy, sympathy. I don't care one way or the other about Marvin with this because I feel he was wrong and out of order and everything about it. And let me just say one more thing about that. The thing that gets me is how people will be so outspoken to defend people who speak against him, but they won't speak against the one who created the whole thing. And so you speak out against the people who speak out against Marvin, but you don't speak out against the foolishness of the whole aspect of it. So that's why I am. He deserves whatever he's getting because people are not going to support him. A lot of people are writing him off. And like I said, you got a Bentley sitting outside and living in a $4-something million house, and you want somebody, and don't use the $20 excuse. No. So that's why I'm still upset about it.
Okay. I'm gonna bring Bishop in last because he's gonna bring us all back down to earth. So let me get Madam Mayor, Myneca.
So, as the non-pastor here,
go ahead, break it down.
So I have a couple of things to say about this. He wouldn't have got a dime from me. So that's it. I've left churches because of that. Because that's not, what churches do. Number one, I did not know it was a convention that he was at. Yeah. He could have put a tent in the back of their church and, and had, people, whatever happened to those old timey tent revivals and so on and so forth. And this is what I talk about with the spending of the money and just taking our resources that we have and spending it out. But as a member of the church, and not a pastor, Remember, members are not aware of the cost that, that it takes to run a church. They're not in the business meetings. So they don't know that the electric bill was $5,000 last month. Or that, we had to pay $7,500 for the facilities person to come in. People just don't think like that.
Right.
And, and so there's a level of communication that possibly needs to happen if we are having, if it's inside a church and we're needing money. We talk about the building fund and, we need this, that, and the other. But really but really having a conversation with the parishioners to say, even an extra $10 or an extra $20, could help us to get the air conditioning system. But they're not in the business meetings, like the deacons are, or the executive board, whatever. Right. So they're not aware of what's going on. So to them, that's just a cut. It's just greed. It costs money to do these things. Well, why does it cost money? Nobody asked you to buy $10,000 worth of balloons to put up.
The balloons.
You know what I'm talking about. Have the big stage with the audio visual, this, that, and the other. No one.
Don't forget the smoke machine now. Don't forget the smoke machine.
Forget the smoke machine, exactly. That's the kind of stuff that we need to stop, that we need to utilize our resources and to utilize our value to, if we want to have those type of things, have someone donate it to you. Stop paying money. And we're paying out the box. And we go to those hotels. When you talked about the hotels, don't forget the resort fee, because that's usually 50% more than the
and they tag it up.
Those resort fees. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's usually the people that really can't afford to go to those conferences trying to go to the conferences.
But let me say about that.
Because usually we would have our businesses pay for those type conferences.
Exactly.
Out of our pockets.
Right.
We need to be doing tent revivals.
Exactly.
Right.
But let me tell you about that, Myneca. Let me tell you one of the other inside truths to that. The churches typically don't even have business meetings anymore. They don't allow, the members to know. I mean, every member of any church should be able to know how much the pastor's salary is, how much, the electricity costs for the year. Any bona fide, legitimate tithing member should know that. The churches don't do that anymore. I mean, churches actually, even if you go to a business meeting, they will pass things out and then say you got to hand it back in. I've seen this firsthand at quite a few churches. So when it comes to those things about expenses and things like that, again, you hit the nail on the head. It's not the members' desire, fault. I'm gonna tell you, I'm happiest being in churches that have 200 members or less. Case in point, back in 1997, just to show you how this foolishness has been going on for many years. October of 1997, myself, Pastor Donnie, Yolanda Adams, Vicki Winans, and somebody else was on the bill. We did a concert for what was my mother's home church. My mother had just died in September, 3 weeks before the concert. We still went on with it because the show got to go on. This concert was promoted as a time to build. This church brought us all in to raise money to help them build this church. This is 2025. They have not laid one brick. Not one brick have been laid in 28 years. That concert, we packed the house out. And I know and I know this because my sister was on staff at the church. And like I said, she convinced us all to come below what our normal honorariums were, and we did it as, like I said, gave them what we call the family rate and stuff like that. We came just for our expenses and all that type of thing. Wow. We know they raised over $200,000. And here it is, 28 years later. They have not paid the asphalt, the parking lot.
Well, you know what I speculate. I'm gonna turn you loose, Archbishop, in a second here. But what I speculate is that a lot of Black churches ended up taking over old Episcopal, Lutheran,
Yes.
those old buildings.
Those old Gothic buildings.
And you might as well have thrown those in the movie. Remember Money Pit? With Tom Hanks. Right. The house just kept fighting back. And I've been in ministry with brand new buildings, and I've been in ministry with old crumbling buildings. Yeah. And I have told pastors, well, I know a pastor who is no longer with us. Mm-hmm. I will not say the names to protect the guilty. I got you. but he wanted to move. And when he was having the meeting, and this is a Baptist church, so in the Baptist church, you do have that structure a lot of times where you have the board and the people, they all vote and all of this. Everybody came out with their oxygen tanks and everything that hadn't been in church for 6 years, 10 years. They came to vote no, that they were not going to move. And his rush, in 2 reasons he was going to, 2 things happened. One, there was a church that had built a new church, but they had immaculately maintained the old church. He had first right to the old church. He was going to move in there because the air conditioning was new. The church had been redone. The mortar outside was filled and everything. The building was in great condition. The other church just had outgrown the building. So he had the right of refusal to that building. That's the one thing. The other building was no longer viable to really try to maintain without it, taking everything else down in the ministry. Everyone came out and voted no. And do you not know that was 30 something years ago, and they are still in that building. With notices on the door from the city, I would go in there and the main sanctuary is no longer usable. There's a hole in the roof. Right. They're in the chapel side because this is a massive building. But it's an old Gothic building, and they are determined to stay in that building when it is too expensive to maintain. So I'm only putting that in as a possibility because what happens is that they have so many bills they have to catch up on just to get in next Sunday that $200,000 is gone because they've been trying to keep what they have instead of making a strong financial decision for the greater good. And I could be wrong about that situation.
They didn't have no good leadership either, and they misused the funds that they did get. But the point was, they have not built anything, But yet they elevated and gave, I know, more than $50,000 to the pastor who just recently retired, a year and a half ago, and things like that. Right. So, ignorant people in leadership roles did not know what they were doing and things like that. But it's just. That's the problem with, and I can't wait to hear Archbishop give his spin on this. But that's my point, because they don't let you know nothing in church meetings. I'll tell you, nobody, the church meetings now they just say the total budget was this. And so if anybody dare say, well, how much is the pastor's salary? That's none of your business.
Remind me to tell y'all about the pastor who had to take out the deacon board because they met him outside after the meeting and they didn't know he was a black belt.
Oh, Lord.
True story. A friend of mine, Archbishop. I'm going to give it to you. Go ahead.
The Lord said, "Lay not up for yourselves."
All right, come on.
Treasures upon the earth, but rather lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven.
Treasures in heaven.
Where moth and dust do not corrupt, and thieves cannot break in and steal. I think one of the main issues that we have in Black church identity is we want to see a show.
Showtime.
Show.
Amen.
And instead of using what we have, we want to build it out and make it bigger than what it needs to be.
Yes.
So here we have a situation. Yes, we know ministry costs. Yes, we know buildings cost. But you want to know something? If you needed a bigger church, you could have went to Pastor so-and-so down the street who had enough room for an extra 500 or 1,000 people.
Exactly.
And say, can we rent this? Can we utilize this for our conference? Here's the problem. Is that the people in the pew are being catered to from not a spiritual aspect.
Thank you. Come on now.
But from an entertainment aspect.
Mm-hmm.
This is why you have your smoke machines and your light shows and all this other kind of thing. You know, the day for standing flat-footed and preaching the adulterated word of God is over, because especially people in our age bracket, we grew up on that boob tube.
Exactly.
Okay. And then the shift that happened in the 80s and the 90s, and you know, gospel music started to explode, and so now we wanted to see the lights, the shows, and all this other kind of stuff. But here's the reality: is that we have to come to a point of reckoning with this. Are we serving man?
Right.
Or are we serving God? Now, Brother Reggie, I'm going to say something to you, because that $100 you were going to give and you reduced it to $2, you know that was wrong, because you have to give at least the Good Baptist offering, one for the Father, one for the Son, one for the Holy Spirit.
The Trinitarian offering, the Trinity offering.
And then it goes down to your point of these churches that have older buildings. You want to know something? If they raise that kind of money, they could do a whole new retrofit of that same building that they're in. The problem is greed.
Greed. That's
misappropriation of funds. You want to know why does the pastor need a Mercedes Benz? Notice I didn't say Mercedes, I said Mercedes.
Right.
Okay. Or Cadillac. Okay. Or Bentley. Or Maybach. Okay. Why?
Thank you.
Okay. Jesus rode into the town on the back of a donkey.
Donkey. Come on, Bishop.
Who do you think you are? See, that's putting the people of God to usury.
Exactly.
Okay, you're making profit off of them. Now, when you have a conference and you are charging people a specific fee to attend, if you're going to take up offerings for those who attend the services, you know, and such, that are not really paying for the conference, fine, take up a free will offering. Never put a dollar amount on. You can't. That is out of order. And what you do is, you know, as men and women of God, we present a false image that your salvation is predicated on the amount of money that you give.
Right.
And that was a cheap one. That was only $20.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, when you tell, I understand old school church and so on and so forth. When the prayer is going on, you close the door. When the offering is going on, you close the door. I understand that. But when you say, close the door.
Sound like Teddy Prendergrass.
Right.
Turn them off.
Yeah. Oh, Lord. Yeah. When you do it like that, it presents an image that you, like you said, we're not free to leave, and that this has now become a requirement by the rule of man rather than by the rule of God. Okay, and this is where churches have to stop. They have to stop doing that. I don't care if it's a church organization, fellowship, this, that, and the other thing. The scripture tells us that the Lord loves a cheerful giver.
Cheerful giver, exactly. Okay.
Paul instructed us on the first day of the week, let each one lay in store beside him as God has prospered him. And here we are still in 2025. If you don't give your 10%, you're going to hell.
You're going to, yeah.
But here we find the Lord saying she gave all what she had, which was 2 mites, 2/10 of a penny. And the scribes and the Pharisees, they gave out of the abundance of what they had. They weren't going to miss it. You see, so the sacrifice has to be this. Until we stop trying to impress man.
Thank you.
And serve God, we're going to continue to have these kind of issues.
Right.
If we are going to serve God, serve him in spirit and in truth.
And in truth. Thank you, Bishop.
Not for the glory of man or for a pat on the back, but for the benefit of the people of God. It doesn't have to be grand. Scripture tells us that the angels rejoice over one soul.
One soul. Thank you. Thank you.
And so we've got to stop the show mentality in the church. You know, and I hate to say this, Brother Reggie, but you know what I'm talking about. We got to stop making celebrities out of these preachers.
Thank you.
And out of the ones, because the real celebrity has to be the Lord.
Exactly. Yes.
And you know,
right.
And Bishop, I want to jump on that celebrity for a second. This is what concerned me. Let me say this first. What concerns me is that there are too many gospel artists who are failed secular artists.
Yes, thank you.
And because of that unfulfilled thing, they're bringing that celebrity attitude to gospel music. Now, when I was coming up, you know, and everybody knows I had the background in music, I grew up in church, but I did not grow up in church music. I grew up in secular music. So I was already playing with famous people, and, you know, I was already in the full culture and working with secular record labels and secular music and all of that stuff. So by the time I came into the church, I had no need to be a celebrity because my brain was kind of polar opposite. I had enough of that. By the time I came into church, I was fine being in the back turning buttons. I did not have to be on stage, you know. And I noticed, and another part of this that I found out when I was also one of my best friends. I'm not going to mention his name; he's no longer with us. But he is a legendary songwriter. Wrote a lot of songs, you know.
Right. He
and I both were going through our conversion journey at the same time, so we were each other's support system, kind of. Exactly. We wanted to do Christian music, and we could hardly knock the door down. Versus we could walk into any record label, we could get any meeting and have any budget, and we were out there we could produce anything secular. Right. When we came into Christian or gospel music, they kind of told us, you know, sit in the back, you know, we don't care that you're a legend, or we don't care that you're this or that.
That's it. You weren't in the clique, brother. You weren't.
We weren't in the clique. We weren't in the clique.
That's what I was talking about, the arrogance. Because Archbishop, don't forget, the other thing that troubled me and vexed me to the point that I wanted to call a brother on the phone and really give him some harsh words when he says, not only I want the $20, but bring it down here because I need to see it myself. I need to see what's in there. And I'm up there like, Negro, please. Negro, please. And we did. We had some words. We did. I do confess. After the fact, I had to reach out and say, look, bro, you know, that was wrong. That was just wrong. So all of this apology for now for damage control, it's just crazy what we've allowed, because what you just said, Darryl, that's the part of church that I've been fighting against for over 25, well, really about 30 years, because I've seen that mindset of, like I said, people trying to build monuments themselves. And you saw by coming in, the biggest flaw in the Christian community is that they were willing to accept all of that foolishness by the wannabe celebrities and by the people who were just trying to use the church to validate themselves because they did fail as a secular artist and all that stuff. But here we are all these years later. We're still, I mean, because right in Pennsylvania, all through Maryland, New York, and everything else, a lot of the churches are failing because they're actually hiring, these celebrity artists now to come in. And I've done workshops. I said, how the hell do you think your musicians feel? You bringing in somebody just because they have a name. These people have been serving you faithfully for years. You're not paying them 1/10 of you're paying the celebrity artist. And the only thing the celebrity artist is doing is standing up front because the pastors feel that's going to bring the people in. And the people are starting to reject that foolishness, as they should.
Well, the reality is that's why they do it. They want to pad the offering.
That's the whole bottom line. Bottom line.
It doesn't matter how much this celebrity preacher, gospel artist, so on and so forth, costs to bring in. It doesn't matter. The people are there only for one purpose only. They're either there to hear a word from God, or, unfortunately, these days, they're there to be entertained.
Entertained, and that's what it's become. There's nothing.
But they'll pay, to go to the arena. They'll pay that, $80, $90, $100 per ticket now. But they won't do it in church. See, here's the thing. The church has to stop competing with the world.
Thank you. We're supposed to be set apart.
We're supposed to be a spiritual organism.
Thank you.
And we become so secular in our approach that we think that is the only way we can attract people.
Thank you.
My Bible tells me that he who wins souls is wise.
Is wise.
I'm not after your pocket. I'm not after your purse. I'm after your soul.
Thank you. Come on.
Even in the episcopate, this year I'm celebrating 26 years as a bishop.
Okay, praise God. Okay.
I'm celebrating 32 years as a priest. But the deal with that is I understood something. The episcopate was never meant to be based on money.
Thank you.
It was meant to be leadership, not ownership.
Thank you. Ooh, brother, that's a whole nother show right there.
Now I'm going to stomp my foot and drop the mic. Because if we understand what that means, is when he said it costs to sit up here.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it cost me bloodshed.
Thank you.
It cost me sleepless night. It cost me tears. It cost me late nights studying. It cost me late nights going here and going there and praying for people and telling them that God is going to see them through. That's what it costs.
Thank you.
Okay? If I get a dime or a donut, it don't matter.
Thank you. Come on now.
God's will has to be performed.
Yes.
And so when preachers, bishops, when they're trying to do man's will, that is all they're going to attract.
That's all they're going to attract.
is they're going to attract men who are going to the same destination. Look at what the word of the Lord says. Word of the Lord says that the road that leads to destruction
yes,
is wide.
it's wide. Yes,
And
yes,
many travel upon it. But the road that leads to salvation
yes.
is narrow.
Arrow. Yes.
Okay. And straight is the way. And few
Straight ways.
find themselves thereupon. So when we're trying to appease the masses, we don't realize that we're really serving our adversary,
Exactly.
who is the devil.
Mhm.
It's the ego, it's the mind, it's the loftiness, that which would exalt itself above the Lord our God. I don't have time for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you're
Thank you.
looking for a bishop to be a bank account,
Thank
you
you.
don't bump your head right there.
Thank you.
But if you're looking for a bishop, and I'm sorry I have to bring this bishop thing in because I see it.
Mhm.
I see it in the church. Well, yeah, you can't be my cover unless I can call you for $5,000.
Thank you. Thank you.
Man, you don't even make $1 in your regular job. How much,
Come on, bro.
But see that, but see,
I see it all.
we have placed, because of false teaching, that prosperity gospel.
That
We have
prosperity.
placed too much emphasis on money and not enough emphasis
That's it.
on the condition of the heart of man.
Right, right.
And I'm going to leave it at that.
Mm.
Can I say something about that?
Yep.
Because I think that's important. That, you know, as you move toward the church, that the members have to feel invested in the church
Yeah.
before they will give.
Yes.
And
Yes.
also there is
Absolutely.
there's a business acumen that all churches should really have that I'm not really sure is there, because I've been a part of many churches, and I've been a part of really good ones as well.
Yeah.
And but the business acumen is not there when the pastor is, there, and the executive committee, whomever that may be. There's no one running the main operations of the church. But I know, as a member myself, what I tend to strive for is not just hearing the word. It's not hearing, oh, it was good, oh, they really shook it up, and then I go home and and that's it. What really drives me toward churches is true ministries, for example. Yeah, those ministries that really help people and help folks, and then that's when you pull in your membership. There's, those are the things that pull me in. For example, when people are in need, because everybody is in need at one point or another.
At one point or the other.
Are you able to go to your congregation to do something because there's an organized structure? There's one church that I went to at one time, and it was a mixed church, but it was in Dallas. And I started going there because my friend used to go to this other church and she started going to this other church. But it was a ministry. For example, they had a carpentry ministry where they had men that were there. And so you would put your request in for something and they do it. It was a ministry where if you were a person in need, whether you were a member or not, automotive ministry where you could go to the shop and they would fix your car so it can get inspected.
Right.
There was a electrical ministry where it could be an HVAC. I mean, whatever the trades are. Ministry where you have members that could actually come in and fix and repair the things in your office if they own their own business, like construction businesses or electrical or HVAC businesses, and they can write it off. They can write it off as a donation to the church. All you have to do is just buy the parts to it. I mean, we just have to think more business-like, because churches in itself, could thrive and they could survive with the help of their own ministers. And not be just the pull. But everybody always talk about the money and so on and so forth. But this is not just in the church, though. I used to manage a city as well. And
Yep.
so, I think we love having the big building and fixing the building, but the maintenance aspect of it, is often a problem. We wait until things break
Yes.
down instead of doing the annual maintenance and so on and so forth, because you don't have the people that were in place to assure that your structure is in the right condition, so that you don't have to spend all this money. And so you have to run a church like a business, but you also, and that means that investors have to, be able to feel that they're going to get something out of the investment. And then people do become cheerful givers, and you begin to draw the right type of people into the church that can make the church thrive.
Yeah,
but
and I can. Go ahead, Reggie.
I have to say something about that. Now, I think we're misinterpreting church.
Mhm.
Okay, I am the church.
Exactly.
You are the church.
Are the church. Thank you.
And so, in the interpretation of this, it says, "By this shall men know that you are mine."
Fine.
That
Exactly.
you have love
You will
one
have
for
love.
another. See, what we've done
Okay.
is
There you
we've
go.
wrapped it up in a business mentality and a business.
Right.
No, this is a love story.
Exactly.
Okay, we cannot say that we love God and don't love each other.
Absolutely.
This is why the Lord said, "Which of you would have a son and he asked for bread and you give him a stone?"
So yes.
Who of you would have brothers and one needs a coat and you have two and don't give him one? Okay,
Absolutely.
and so
Thank you.
it's not business, it's
Mhm.
compassion.
Right.
Okay,
It should. It
and
should be. Right.
now once you get to a portion where you have this structure, and I'm talking about a building that you have to maintain and so on and so forth, a lot of times in that you lose sight of ministry.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ministry
Thank you.
is it's intimate,
Mm-hmm.
it's personal.
Mhm.
How can I show you the love of God
Absolutely.
without making this grandiose thing? Well, this
Thank
is
you.
all that I have. See,
Thank
that's described. So what we need to, especially our people, is we need to go back to grassroots organic
Absolutely.
ministry
Right.
based in community
Right.
and not in building.
And compassion.
Yeah.
Okay,
That-
And
so
see,
the building takes our focus away from
away from it.
what we're
Exactly.
supposed to do.
and see, and Reggie, I
Yeah.
know you got something. I know you got something, but and see, the thing is though, is that if we know how to have, one of my favorite scriptures is, "A false balance is an abomination to the Lord,
Yeah.
but a just weight is his delight."
Right.
And God is a God of balance. So you love people and you got to pay a light bill at the same time. Okay, so so if we understand the balance of all of that, I think we can do pretty well. Because if we know that, and some of my most fulfilling times in ministry has been when I started a church in a hotel ballroom. And the hotel turned into a church. It got so large in there, and we didn't even get a building. It got so large in there that we actually had the ballroom rented for the whole week, and the church stayed set up. We no longer broke down the church. And then the children's church were in the smaller meeting rooms. We started occupying every meeting room in the hotel.
Yeah, exactly.
And all of the guests from the hotel started coming down to service. And especially when you have your truck drivers who were frequent, people who were, or business travelers that were frequent, they came to church regularly. And people came from a total opposite side of Baltimore to go to church. Over there, they would go through the tunnel and pay money to go through the tunnel. And if you know a lot of those people who didn't have a lot of money, they did it. And if they couldn't go through the tunnel, they went all the way around the Beltway to get there, or the long way. And the reason why those things happened is because we were in a position where I did not have to hold hostage situations.
Right.
You know, and the hotel being very good to us, they kept the cost controlled.
Right, exactly.
So in that fashion, we were capable of doing the things we needed to do, and the people could be fulfilled. Go ahead, Reggie.
And see, the thing is with that, Darryl, it's because the people recognize true ministry, alluding to what Archbishop says. We have gotten so caught up in the grandiose of the big buildings. Yes, you have to operate sometime as a business when you're that large, but if you lose sight of what the church is supposed to be about as the vessel, we are the church first and foremost. Because there was a situation, do you all remember, this has been at least 4 or 5 years ago, there was a big time pastor, it was all over the national news. Some elderly lady had gone to this church more than 50 years, and when she died, the pastor refused to let her be buried there because she had been in a nursing home for the last 2 years and not had any tithes paid, and had the audacity to tell the family, you have to pay all of this back money that she owed because she hasn't paid nothing while she's in the nursing home. And see, that's what's wrong with the church, because we've allowed these pastors. I mean, I know of, off the top of my head, quite a few churches nationwide that the pastors, the church has become the family business, because when the pastors retire, they pass it down to their son. Okay, it's a family business, and if you're not in the clique, like we were talking about, Darryl, this is why I'm proud to say I have been blacklisted by some pastors and some churches and some in our community of being recording artists, and I'm glad about it. I'm proud of it. I wear that badge with honor, because if we forget that the church is supposed to be the hospital that anybody can go to, and they shouldn't have to be a member and stuff like that. We give food to anybody at our church. We just came out of what we call the winter relief. People have been living in the auxiliary building at the church. The men are separated naturally from the women with the children and things like that, because that's what the church is supposed to be about. We're supposed to be there for the community. But all this foolishness now, when you find these churches where the church has been passed down, like I said, that's not about ministry no more. They are building monuments to themselves. And if anybody like me dare speak out against it, they will try to excommunicate you and blacklist you. And I'm gonna be like, go for it, because I'm gonna still keep shouting this from the mountaintop, because that's not what church is about.
Well, this too shall change. I think so many things are so many things in our realm, our society is in a transitional period.
Right.
Yes. Guys, I'm gonna stop here because we have a lot. We have a lot brewing on our little old spirits here. And everybody, I hope you received or enjoyed this conversation. Please share, like, subscribe, hit that little bell, for notifications, and tell someone that we're here talking about the things that are relevant to our community and to our world. Unfiltered. And I just want to let you guys, I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And I think I'm enjoying these conversations. And if you guys want to send us a question, you can send it right there on the comments. We would like to hear anything you have to add to the conversation, because all perspectives we want to allow to chime in. I have a free speech timeline, so you can say what you have to say, and hopefully we can come to a good place in it. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining the What Now podcast. I'm Darryl Elliott with Myneca and Archbishop and Reggie, and we are going to see you again next week. You all have a good time.
Have a good one.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.